Hello and welcome to Midwest Writers Room. Our mission is to encourage, educate, and celebrate writers of the Midwest. I'm Luella Schmidt.
And I'm Ken Humphrey. Today's Chapter Break episode features Dennis McBride and his latest publication, A City on the Edge: Pandemic, Protests, and Polarization, published by Indiana University Press on September 30th, 2025.
Dennis McBride is mayor of Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. He holds a journalism degree from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, a master's degree in public administration from Princeton University, and a law degree from New York University. He practiced law for 35 years for Boston and Milwaukee law firms and the U.S. government. A two-time marathon champion, he is a member of the UW-Milwaukee and Wauwatosa East High School Athletics Hall of Fame. Halls of Fame, that's two of them. He is the author of A City on the Edge: Pandemic, Protest, and Polarization, and co-author with his twin brother Patrick of The Luckiest Boy in the World.
So Dennis did tell us it's been a while since he's ran marathons, so maybe I'll have a chance in a race when we're done here, but probably not. Let's take a look at his book itself. As a pandemic convulsed America in 2020, mass shootings soared and the murder of George Floyd touched off international protests. Churning in the background were a bitter presidential campaign and counter protests opposing health measures and the election result. Every mayor struggled with some of these challenges, but Dennis McBride, the new mayor of a mostly white suburb bordered by Milwaukee, faced them all. His city was a microcosm of a troubled nation. A City on the Edge tells how mayors have steered our hometowns through a storm of personal and political divisions and how those events are still affecting America today.
Love it. We are so happy to have you here. Welcome to Midwest Writers Room. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's a delight to be here.
All right, so let's chat a little bit about your book. It's not your first one. I'm assuming the book with your twin brother was written prior to this. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was 4 years ago.
Okay, perfect. So then what made you decide to jump back into it and write this one?
There were three reasons. It's important to record the history of the moment. 2020 and 2021 were important times. I start the book by trying to put the year of 2020 in its historical context as I think one of the most important watershed years that we're going to look back on as historians and others and just say that this changed the world. I think it did change the direction of the world. And so that was important. And some people said, is this a memoir? Part of it is memoir because I do talk about Wauwatosa and my role in navigating the problems. But the other part is explanation. People need to understand why mayors do what they do in times of crisis and why they don't do what they don't do in times of crisis. So I have some legal explanations and some other things about my authority or lack of it to steer the direction of a community.
All right, interesting. So you titled the book A City on the Edge, and I can tell you back from those times, I'm not far from the Kenosha, Wisconsin area. And that was a city that, I mean, downtown, it burned, right? There were riots. I had friends whose families owned businesses right in the periphery of some of those riots, and it was a very, very tense time. Is it fair to say that you titled this book A City on the Edge in response to some of that, or how did the title come about?
It has a double meaning. Wauwatosa is an interesting community because although we're the 14th largest city in the state at night, during the day we're the fourth largest city in Wisconsin after Milwaukee, Madison, and Green Bay. We have over 105,000 people in Wauwatosa on a given workday. We have the state's largest medical center, the state's busiest shopping mall. We have factories, we have colleges and universities. We are a crossroads, but we are on the edge of Milwaukee. There's a book written 35 years ago by a Washington Post reporter called Edge City. Wauwatosa is a classic late 20th century edge city. We are an older urban community starting in 1835, but a newer suburban community on our west side. So we are Milwaukee's second downtown, and everything about us has us on the edge between urban America and suburban America. So that was one meaning, and the other is, of course, the emotional edge that we were all teetering on in 2020 and still teeter on today. And that's part of my thesis, which is we have not escaped 2020.
I really appreciate the fact of sort of just the localness of it. I think a lot of times big national and international things happen, and honestly, understanding how government works from a local and mayoral point of view is actually really, really helpful. So I appreciate you writing this book, and I'm wondering, as you were writing it, did you have any struggles or notable moments that kind of gave you an aha along the way, and also tell us how long it took you to write.
Well, I pitched the book in early 2021 and frankly sold it within a half hour. That's an interesting story. But um, like all authors, I wanted my book to come out tomorrow. But the editor said, no, we're going to do a 5-year look back. So we're not going to publish until 2025. And of course, again, I wanted it to come out right away. I had a book that I wanted to write and get it done with. But it made it a better book. And so that was a struggle internally, but also it lengthened the process. But I kept adding to the book and adding to it. And a friend of mine said, oh, my favorite quote in the book is from the European Union guy about the importance of Wisconsin. I can talk about that. But so that was added after the 2024 election. What I meant by that is the guy said, he was telling his European Union colleagues, we need to stop worrying about what voters in Wisconsin think and take charge of our own affairs. That's how important Wisconsin is, that people in the European Union are looking at how we balance on the edge all the time as a battleground state.
Yeah. Do you
So
agree now that it was 5 years? Now that you have the 5-year look back, do you agree that that was the right call?
absolutely, it's a
Yeah.
better book, and it's astonishing. People who have read the book are saying, "Oh my goodness, I forgot about a lot of this stuff," and they agree with me that here we are, we're reliving a lot of the pandemic stuff, the anti-vaccination people, the people who are still denying that the pandemic ever really occurred. They think it was a hoax. We've got that with us, and we still have our racial conflicts. We certainly have our political polarization, and I make the argument in the book, seconded by others, that the 2024 election was part and parcel of the 2020 election. We didn't get past that either.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think from a personal standpoint, an observation of mine is that, as a world, we went through a traumatic event, and we're not yet fully skilled at how to process that. And so we as a people are all still doing that, in my opinion. um, so tell us a little bit about the path to publication then for you. You hinted at
Well,
it a little bit.
yes. Well, so someone asked me yesterday, why did you think it was important to write the book? Again, I needed to capture the moment, and I wanted to explain to people on the extreme left and the extreme right why I stayed in the extreme middle. Because everybody has a point of view, and they want to drag me in this direction or that direction, and I wanted to stay faithful to the law and my oath of office. But so I wrote a book proposal and I sent it off to 4 university publishers. The reason I chose university publishers is because I didn't need an agent to do that. I still haven't heard from 2 of them. I heard from another one, negotiated with them. That didn't work. But Indiana University Press, I got an email right away. It was an automatic email saying, we get a lot of submissions. We'll get back to you in a couple of months. And I thought, well, that's fair. And then I got a real email 20 minutes later saying, hey, well, I want to talk to you. And so I got the right editor at the right time with the right pitch. And it took a while to negotiate the contract and all the rest of it. But essentially, we were on the, no pun intended, same page within 20 minutes after I wrote the proposal, which was astonishing to me. It wasn't supposed to be like that. This is my first book that I've written all by myself. And I thought it was going to take 2 years to sell it, and it didn't take that long. I guess it was the right idea at the right time.
Yeah,
Well, and
obviously.
I think you ran the path that every author dreams of. I send my book out there and it's so irresistible that I get an immediate acceptance, right? So kudos to you.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I'm still, if
absolutely.
I'm shocked by anything, that's the most shocking part.
Well, and so what do you want readers to know about your writing style and some of the choices that you make in this book?
Well, first of all, as you pointed out, I have a journalism degree and I also have a law degree. But I also am the son of 2 newspaper reporters. My parents met in the newsroom at the Milwaukee Journal, and my mother was a political reporter for the Milwaukee Sentinel. And I dedicate the book to her because she was my political muse all these years. She also was the vice chair of the state Democratic Party when she wasn't reporting. But having newspaper reporters as parents and being a journalist, at least by degree, and I did do some work in public relations, my father always said, and he was a great writer, he was a reporter for 49 years, take out the adjectives and adverbs. They overheat everything. He also said, never use a 25-cent word when a nickel one will do. Well, with inflation, maybe that's gone up a little bit. But my dad was a down-to-earth guy, and he wrote in a down-to-earth fashion. I write about some very complex subjects, and I try to be as down-to-earth as my dad was. It's a little hard, but I have legal concepts to do. But I still try to find those nickel words instead of the 25-cent words. It makes it easier to read. Keep the sentences short. Don't write in the passive voice. But again, the adjectives and adverbs, you'll find very few of them in the book. I came across a quote from Scout Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. She said, Atticus always said, leave out the adjectives and you'll have the facts. And that's what I wanted. There are people who are going to start reading this book who are going to be skeptical of the actions I took in 2020. And it wouldn't serve the purpose of trying to illuminate why I did that if the prose is overheated. This is not a novel. This is nonfiction. So if I were writing a novel about this, I would probably use a lot of adjectives and adverbs.
Yeah. I bet your experience with the law all those years really helped with that. You know, part of your job, I would imagine, is taking these complex terms and sort of being able to tell a story in simple words.
Even and I worked for a federal judge for a year when I came out of law school, but I understood right away, and I had to read a lot of people's briefs. Even for somebody who's as learned as a federal judge, you want to keep the prose simple and direct because
Sure.
people read a lot, and it just they're gonna like you, and they're gonna like your argument a lot better.
Yeah. And finally, your book it's 191 pages of text and 654 endnotes over 107 additional pages. Talk to us about why you did so many citations.
A lot of people who've read it have noticed that right away. They said, "Holy cow, you've really footnoted this book." Well, again, I'm writing for the skeptical reader. There were, again, many people who didn't like what I did or didn't understand what I did, whether they're on the right wing or the left wing. And as a reader, I always challenge the author every time I read a book. Okay, you make an assertion, prove it to me. And I've even done that with my brother's books. I've got a brother who's published 25 books, and I go, Joe, prove it to me. And he does it. My brother heavily researches things. But for the skeptical reader, if they say, I don't believe that, I would say, go to footnote 54 and take a look. It's a Washington Post article. That's where I got it. So the only times that things aren't footnoted are the times where it comes from my own personal experience, and there's no story other than my story that I write in the book.
Yeah. All right. Ken, are we ready for a reading?
I think we're there.
All right. So, Dennis, before you start, maybe share with our listeners, where you are in the book, and then when you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Sure. This excerpt comes, it's the beginning of the third chapter. The first chapter is called Microcosm because Wauwatosa was a microcosm of America. Second chapter deals with the pandemic, and the third one is called Long Hot Summer. And it deals with, and this is an important point, I didn't just write about Wauwatosa. I wrote about Seattle, Portland, Minneapolis, Chicago, New York, all those places. We mayors across the country, Boise, Idaho, we all dealt with similar things. So this chapter is about every place but Wauwatosa. The next chapter after this starts on Wauwatosa. So here's where it goes. Before 2020, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Seattle, and Portland were America's North Stars, liberal havens blessed with progressive leadership and innovative businesses. Minneapolis was the home of Mary Richards, the beloved heroine of television's The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Seattle was the home of Microsoft, Eddie Bauer, and fussy TV psychiatrist Fraser Crane. And the New York Times dubbed Portland the capital of West Coast urban cool, while the TV series Portlandia affectionately poked fun at the city's quirky hipness. All that changed in 2020. As the COVID pandemic and the presidential campaign simmered nationwide, an incident in Minneapolis caused tensions to boil over there and everywhere. On May 25th, 2020, Minneapolis police officers arrested an African-American man for allegedly trying to buy cigarettes at a corner store with a counterfeit $20 bill. While other officers watched, Derek Chauvin suffocated George Floyd by kneeling on his neck for almost 10 minutes while he gasped and cried for help, and onlookers begged Chauvin to stop. The slow-motion murder, captured on a citizen's cell phone video and circulated online, ignited protests in Minneapolis, across America, and around the world. People poured into the streets to express their outrage against police killings of Floyd and other blacks. The incident started what has been called the largest mass protest movement in American history. In just the 5 weeks after Floyd died, as many as 26 million Americans participated in more than 4,700 protests, about 140 each day, in 2,500 large cities and small towns across the country. The protests continued throughout 2020. By the end of November, protests had occurred in almost 4,500 cities worldwide in more than 60 countries and in all U.S. states and territories. Although the international protests were linked to U.S. racial problems, they were also aimed at issues in their own countries. For example, demonstrations in the United Kingdom protested racism in that former empire, which is still struggling with post-colonialism and its past involvement in the international slave trade. That the Floyd murder occurred in Minneapolis was a shock to many Americans. Minneapolis, observed Harvard University professor Khalil Gibran Muhammad, was a city once considered a national model of racial liberalism in a state whose citizens are thought to be Minnesota nice. Known for its gleaming skyscrapers, beautiful lakes, and the University of Minnesota, and bolstered by its partnership with the state capital of St. Paul across the Mississippi River, Minneapolis seemed to have escaped the Rust Belt declines and racial issues of other more industrialized Midwestern cities. Smug in that success, Minneapolis hit its rank of 99th, second worst, of America's 100 largest metropolitan areas, and the gap between black and white earnings, and its police department's pattern and practice of discrimination against blacks and Native Americans. But after the murder of George Floyd, said Muhammad, Minneapolis may be the city most notorious for anti-black police violence in the world. It was hardly alone. America and its cities have a long history of violence against African Americans dating back to the institution of slavery in the 1600s. The 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, ratified in 1865, prohibited slavery, but after Reconstruction ended in 1877 and federal troops pulled out of the South, lynchings and other brutality against blacks became common in the North as well as in the South. The brutality has persisted. Sometimes it has been inflicted by police officers, such as in the 1965 riots in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, which resulted in 34 deaths. Riots erupted again in Los Angeles in 1992 after officers were acquitted for beating a black man named Rodney King. In 2014, protests and unrest followed the police shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and the death of Eric Garner, whom New York City police killed with a chokehold for selling contraband cigarettes. These were just a few of the many such incidents since the end of Reconstruction. In my hometown of Wauwatosa, a police officer killed 3 men of color over a 5-year period, most recently on February 2nd, 2020. Months of protests challenge our community throughout the year.
Wow. Well, a couple of things. So first of all, Minneapolis is me and my husband is like, that's our city. We don't live there anymore, but I grew up in Minnesota. And Ken did too. And my husband and I have so many lovely memories of Minneapolis. We go there all the time, including just last weekend. And I felt
wonderful.
every bit of it, what you said.
It's a
Every bit of
wonderful
it.
city. Yeah, it's a wonderful city.
Yeah, but also not perfect. And also when the gap becomes apparent in the way that we treat each other, there's no shame in just talking about it and trying to fix it instead of,
Right.
no, that didn't happen. No, that doesn't exist. And so understanding kind of how we got here in your reading, it goes way, way back. I think that's really helpful.
One thing that people have noticed as I go through my work as mayor is they go, you always have a historical note. Well, that's how I was raised, and I'm an avid reader of history. There's an awful lot of Abraham Lincoln in there, for example. But we again, to quote Lincoln in his 1858 Lincoln-Douglas debates, he said, "We need to know where we were, so we know where we're going." I paraphrase.
I
but
love that.
yes.
Yes, I agree. Any understanding of the history that came before us can only help us understand why we're here. So, okay, let's tell our listeners where they can find more about you, where they can find your book.
Well, if you're in the Milwaukee area, my book is available at Boswell Books and at Barnes & Noble at Mayfair Mall in Wauwatosa. It's also available as a hard copy, paperback, or ebook from the publisher, Indiana University Press, and you can go on the IU Press website for that. Amazon Prime has it. Barnes & Noble website, Books A Million website. So there are multiple places to get it, easy to get it. And sales have been pretty good already, I think. So
Good.
I'm hoping that the publisher will think I'm a successful author.
And at the time it's recording, your book's been out roughly, exactly a month. So do you have any appearances or signings on your docket?
I have been doing some locally. I've been doing some interviews regionally. Right now, I have no signings lined up. I'm working on that. I also have a day job, so that's kind of it interferes with my ability to promote my book 100% of the time. But there will be signings coming up in the future, and I don't have an author webpage yet, but I do have a Facebook page. People can look up Dennis McBride, and I will tell them where I'm going to be, when I'm going to be there.
And as an aside, I've got to imagine that, when you send out a email to a bookstore or some other outlet agency, say, hey, by the way, I'm the mayor of Wauwatosa. That's probably got to be a pretty good stick to swing in terms of getting attention, as opposed to, some unknown author. That probably helps you, I think, huh?
Well, the problem, of course, is what's a Wauwatosa? So, if I were the mayor of New York, I probably would have sold 100,000 copies already. That was part of my challenge as someone trying to pitch the book was, why does Wauwatosa matter? And I think and I hope I made the case that Wauwatosa matters a lot.
You certainly made it here.
We are called the flyover in this part of the country, and that's unfair because we matter. We matter a lot. Minneapolis certainly mattered. Kenosha mattered. Milwaukee and Madison and Wauwatosa mattered. Chicago mattered during 2020, and Chicago continues to matter today with the National Guard there. We had the National Guard in Wauwatosa in 2020. I'm intimately familiar with what it takes to bring this National Guard in and why they come in. So all these things matter. They matter across the country and sometimes across the world, as George Floyd did.
All right, very good. Well, at this time, I want to thank Dennis for coming on, introducing everybody out there to A City on the Edge, Pandemic, Protests, and Polarization. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us in the Midwest Writers Room. I'm Ken Humphrey.
And I'm Luella Schmidt. Words ignite imaginations and spark change. Never underestimate the power of storytelling.
Midwest Writers Room is a production of the Wisconsin Writers Association. Writing and editing by Luella Schmidt and Ken Humphrey. Sound design and editing by Ken Humphrey. Music for the Midwest Writers Room was written by Michael Ramir C. For more information, please visit wiwrite.org/podcast. Thank you.